Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second session of the Marketing Cloud Implementation Series session. And firstly, I thank everyone for joining today's session, and I really appreciate your continued passion to learn and upskill. And today we have Tim. He is experienced in the Marketing Cloud, and he has with him a varied expertise in the Marketing Cloud and other products as well. So today's topic is going to be about how do we write the tracking data back to the Salesforce from Marketing Cloud. So you may be aware of using MC Connect and then getting the records and kicking off some emails from the Salesforce. But from the Marketing Cloud, how do we display all the tracking information on the Salesforce records? So this is something which not many clients might have implemented. There may be some partial implementation that only halfway the data gets from the Salesforce to the Marketing Cloud and it kicks off the journeys or the automations as such. But after the emails are sent, not many clients have done might have done the complete implementation that they write the tracking data back to the Salesforce. And we are going to look more at the Salesforce side of the things, how we implement that and how the records can be displayed, the records on the data can be displayed on the Salesforce end. So today, Tim is going to share all about that with a detailed demo. I'm excited to see what he has to share, and I really appreciate Tim for coming up and willing to share this topic. Before we get started, I would like to also share the next sessions that are lined up. On Feb 18th, Feb 8th, we have the Marketing Cloud Integrations and Best Practices by Kunal. And on March 1st, by Asia, we have setting up better marketing campaigns and advanced use cases. So the registration is up for these sessions as well. You can find them on the group's event page. And I have a news to share. If you haven't already seen this, the nominations for the Marketing Champions program are open. So this has been long awaited, and I know many of you are waiting to see when will the nominations, when will the applications be open for this program. It is a prestigious program, and it is I can say that it is the program which helped me to learn more, which helped me to give back more, which helped me to get more visible as well. So the nominations are open. You can scan this code, or you can copy this link and you can go and apply here. You can self-nominate, or if you already know a current marketing champion, you can go and request them to nominate for you. So once they nominate you, you will get an email, and later you can go and nominate yourself. Now fill the application to nominate yourself. So you have to give your details, how you have been active in the community, and how you can share your knowledge and expertise with the community. So I'm going to keep this up for a few more seconds. So this is you can use this barcode, or you can use this link as well. So for those who are absolutely new to the Marketing Champions program, so if you want to know what it takes to be a marketing champion, so these are some of the criteria. So you must have completed the application. So if the team has to consider your nomination, there should be some kind of application going through you. Even if a current marketing champion nominates you, the second step would be you going and filling in the application, and you have to talk more about yourself, your accomplishments, or how you plan to give back to the community. And the other criteria is the product expertise. You should have at least 1 year of experience in the platform, and you should be active in the community and participating in events. And if you're interested and if you write blog posts, you can talk about them as well. Any web pages you have created or any videos you have posted on the YouTube channel talking about some of the features in the Marketing Cloud, pod or data or anything that falls into the Marketing Cloud umbrella. And you should have an active social media profile, and you're a member of the Salesforce programs. These are the basic minimal criteria, and we are planning for some more detailed sessions about the Marketing Champions program and what you can expect and what you can how you can get involved. So be on the lookout for those announcements as well. But for today's session, it's all going to be about stint session. So I won't take much time. So this session is going to be recorded. And if you have any questions, as usual, post them in the chat window. And we'll get them answered at the end of the session. Any other questions, please post them in the Slack channel after the session. And we really appreciate your feedback and your inputs. On the Slack channel, you can post them, and on the Twitter, please use these handles, MC Learning Camp, and the Marketing Champions handles. So I think that is it from my end. So I'll turn it over to you, Tim. I'm so excited to listen to you today, and I can't wait to listen.
Thank you, JB. Appreciate that. Let me share my screen and let's get started. Okay, so like JB said, today's session is about writing tracking data from Salesforce to Marketing Cloud. I'm Tim Ziter. I'm with Cervello. So diving right into what we're going to be looking at today, we've got an overview, which will give you a case study taken right from one of our client projects. And then we're going to go into a flow diagram to take a look at the data architecture between the two platforms. And from that point on, we'll be building in the Salesforce CRM platform. We're going to be taking a look at campaigns, the individual email results object that JB had mentioned. That's where that tracking data comes in from Marketing Cloud, and taking a look at our reports as well. The bulk of the work will be done in Marketing Cloud. We're going to be populating those fields in the send log using AmpScript and building those SQL queries in Automation Studio to populate those records that will end up being updated via a journey in Marketing Cloud. So if you want to save your questions for the end, that'd be great. We might be asking them throughout the session. So let's jump right into our case study. So Cervello Bank has launched a marketing campaign for sales to invite key contacts to a webinar. So all sales needs to do is to take their clients from their book of business, drop them into this campaign, and then Marketing Cloud takes it from there. It'll send a personalized email from that salesperson to invite them to that webinar. So a couple of weeks before the webinar, the sales team, the marketing team is noticing that they've got a low number of signups. And they think it has to do with adoption with sales, but they don't really know because the reporting is limited in the sales environment. They can't see who sent that email. So that's what they're looking to do in the solution. They're looking to pull in those custom fields like JB had said from Marketing Cloud into the Salesforce CRM environment to customize those out-of-the-box reports. And in the Marketing Cloud environment, they want to populate on an ongoing basis this email send data in a send log that can make it easy, and in addition to leveraging this custom data view data to populate those individual email results records on an ongoing basis. And then most importantly, they wanted to create an automated, always-on solution that's just always running in the background, populating that data. So if we take a look at this flow diagram, here are that we're going to be working in today, the Salesforce CRM environment and Marketing Cloud. And this is the end result right here. This is this report that we want to populate that custom data from Marketing Cloud so that we can check that adoption rate by sales. So what we're going to be doing is pulling these fields that we're going to be creating in the individual email result object. We're going to create these custom fields that are going to be fed into this report. Another field in the individual email result object is this merge ID. So this is a very important field that connects the individual email result object in the CRM environment with the Marketing Cloud environment through this data view, which we'll be going through in a little bit. The majority of the build today is going to be around this section where we're going to be creating a custom script in the email itself that upon send, it's going to populate custom information into this send log. And then that's going to allow us to create an automation to pull data from both of these record sources, from the data view and the send log, to create these files that the journey and the 10 will end up updating these records in the individual email results object and allow us to feed that into the report itself. So let's go right in and dive into the CRM environment and take a look at this campaign. So this is the campaign that we've set up, that marketing set up, that allows the sales team to drop in their contacts right into this campaign. So when someone drops into a contact in a campaign, let's just walk through how that works. So here, I'm a salesperson, I'm going to select my contact. I'm going to select add to campaign. I'm going to be told which campaign that is to add it to, and I'm going to select this add to campaign status. set overwrite member status and click submit. So that's how the salesperson will quickly and easily drop them into a campaign. When they do that, in Marketing Cloud, a journey kicks off and we'll send them an email invite. So this is using a Salesforce entry event, entry source, which we'll go through it a little bit later, looking for that campaign member object that was just created or updated by that salesperson adding it in the CRM environment, where that add to campaign is selected for that specific campaign. So once they get pulled in, they're going to get send an email from that salesperson and inviting them to the webinar. And then it's also going to update the campaign member status back in the campaign itself. So when that email is sent from the Marketing Cloud environment, a record in the CRM environment gets created in that individual email results object. So let's go back and let's take a look at one of those records, that individual email result record. So if we go to the related tab in this environment, this is where we can find this individual email results objects. We're going to click in here and take a look at what we've got. So here you can see some of the basic information that's provided from Marketing Cloud, which is pretty good. We've got the name of the email, we've got the date when that was sent. If they've opened or clicked it, this will be populated here as well. And we've gone ahead and created 2 new custom fields in this individual email result object. And these are the fields that we're going to want to populate from the Marketing Cloud environment. So who sent that email? Which the salesperson, their name and their email address. And we're going to pull this in just for this example, for this use case. So if we go back to the campaign itself, just to illustrate the amount of limited data that's in the CRM environment related to that information. So if we go take a look at all these campaign members, we can see their name, we can see their last name, we can see this invite email status that was updated from the journey, but that's all the information we can see in the campaign members. If we go to a report that's based on the individual email results themselves, we can also pull in some great data from the individual email results that we're seeing for all of those sends. So we can get the name, the account information. We can see that engagement data, but here's where we're going to want to populate so that we can track adoption by the sales teams, which salesperson's dropping their contacts in, and that'll be helpful for the sales and marketing team to help follow up with those salespeople to help push them and to drive that adoption. Okay, so now we're going to move over into the Marketing Cloud environment, and our first stop is that send log. We need to create custom fields and start populating the data points in the send log itself. So let's go into the Marketing Cloud environment. Let's take a look at the send log. So the send log is exactly what it is. It is a log of all of your sends from the Marketing Cloud environment. You only have one send log per business unit. Let's take a look at some of these records in the send log. There are a couple of key records, fields in the send log. This job ID, list ID, batch ID, and sub ID, where if you take the combination of all of these fields, it'll give you a unique record identifier for a record within the send log. So it's something we wanted to call out. We'll be using these fields later on in the solution. We've also gone through and created some custom fields in the send log. So we created this send from name, send from email, which is what we're going to want to populate. So the send log is just a data extension. It's a unique data extension, but creating new fields in a send log is as easy as creating it in any other data extension. You just hit the plus sign, you put in your field, and you can select the data type, the length, all those classic things. But definitely be mindful whenever you're creating fields in your send log. There may be other people within the business unit that may be impacted with you pulling in that data. Sometimes in some of our clients, we have send logs that span the entire enterprise. So even though it is a basic data extension, it does have downstream and upstream effects across the organization. Okay, so now that we have created these fields in our send log, we need to populate them. You can't just create the fields, the data is not going to get populated. So our next section is populating these new fields that we've added here. So to illustrate that, we've created a second journey that is going to populate do the testing of populating the data in the send log. So to use this journey, we recreated the entry event for our campaign, so we know the exact data that's coming into this journey. And we've got 2 emails that we're going to be sending to a test record. The first email is going to not populate any of those custom fields in the send log. It's just the status quo email that we currently use. The second email is the email where we're going to be working in, where we're going to be adding a custom code content block that's going to populate those values in the send log. So when we drop someone into this journey, a test record, in the send log itself, we should be able to see a before and after, see an email that doesn't have the custom send information, and an email send that should be populating that custom information as well. So here's the email that we're going to be editing and adding that script to. And so let's go ahead and create a custom script to populate those values in the send log. So I've selected this folder in Content Builder. We're going to go here to this Create section, and we're going to select a content block. So we're going to use a code snippet content block, which is recommended whenever you're using a AMP script only code. Just makes it easier to just do the coding in that. And I'm going to open up this AMP script block this way so that we can do some coding in this space. So we're going to give you two examples of how to populate data in a send log. We're going to give you a simple example of populating a field, and we're going to give you a little bit more of a complicated example. So the first example we're going to use is we're going to populate this field called email ID, which we found to be very helpful to always have in your send log. So an email ID is the actual number for each content piece that gets populated in the Marketing Cloud environment. So it can be very helpful to have that in your send log to query ongoing. So how do we populate that value? Let's go back to our send log. We have the email ID field here. It's not being populated. We're going to copy that syntax. We're going to bring it over to our AMP script code here. So for it to be populated in the send log, we need to create that as a variable. So we're just going to add an @ symbol there in this variable. Now we're also going to declare this part of our good coding. We're going to declare this variable in a var statement as well. Now we're going to set this variable, and we're going to set it to something. So how do we set this variable? What's going to be our source that's going to provide the email ID? So luckily in Marketing Cloud has these data points called personalization strings. It's this treasure trove of all this amazing data that you have access to at time of send. And there are a ton of them, which is great. Like you can get the email name, you can get all this different information, first name, last name of the person. And so we do unfortunately have this email ID right here as a personalization string. So we're going to copy that syntax. We don't need the %% in there. We're going to bring it back to the code. And there you go. That's how we're going to be able to populate a value in the send log, that email ID. Just going to set it to that personalization string. And then just from a good coding standpoint, we're going to wrap this in an if statement, just to make sure that the code has resiliency. So I'm just going to create an if empty here. I'm going to close that bracket. We're going to do a then. We're going to indent this just to make that look nice. And then we're going to do this with an end if to end out that code block. And there you go. That's how you do a simple example of populating a field in the send log. All right, let's move on to a little bit more complicated use case, which is populating these two fields that we had created, the send from name. Let's copy this over. And the send from email. Okay. So where are we going to get this data, the send from name, send from email? So like I said, when a salesperson drops in their contact into the campaign, a campaign member is created. So we want to take a look back in the CRM environment and see where we can find that data source for that name and email. So let's go back into the campaign. Let's find a campaign member and see if we can find in one of those campaign members a field that might indicate the person who created that campaign member that might tie us to that salesperson. So if we scroll through here, here we go. Here's Michelle. Michelle is the salesperson. Here's that field created by. We're going to copy this. Now, this is the field value in Salesforce. It's not the actual API name. So to find the API name, we're going to go under Setup. We're going to go into this object manager in the CRM environment, where we're going to look up and find the API name of this field. This is something that Marketing Cloud is going to recognize, not the field name. So when we go to Object Manager, we're going to search for campaign member. So we're going to search campaign. We're going to pull up this campaign member. We're going to go to the fields and relationships. And we're going to paste in that value we just selected. Okay, great. There's the API name. It's different, right? Created by ID. Let's copy that. Let's bring this over to our code. And let's just save this in here for now, just so I have that as a record. But we're not done there because we need to find how this created by ID field is being rendered in the data extension that the journey is populating. So when we go back to this data, the journey itself, when you set up the entry event, you're going to create all this entry data, these fields that you're going to want to bring over to populate your content. And there it is. See that created by ID, that crazy syntax there. So there, that looks like the field that we want to bring over, but we're not going to bring that one up. Let's go to the actual data extension itself. So we can really just validate the data. So we're going to be looking for the data extension that's tied to this journey. It's called Cervelo Sales Push. Here it is here in, we've pulled this up. And let's take a look at these records. So we want to validate that the data extension is going to include records that would align to, yeah.
No, sorry, Tim. I'm gonna mute them.
Okay, no
You
problem.
can continue.
No problem.
Sorry.
Cool. Okay, so here's that campaign member created by ID field. And let's look at this data set. Yes, we see this 0053 number. That corresponds to a sales user, a salesperson in the Marketing Cloud or in the CRM environment. So that makes sense. I think that's the data field we want. Sometimes with these data extensions, you can't actually see the field. So if you hit edit field and you copy it, we should be able to copy over that syntax for the data extension. So let's paste this in. This is going to be the data field that we're going to want to pull in from the data extension. There we go. And now we don't need this created by ID anymore. So we're going to change this to the user ID. So this is the user ID that we're going to be setting because it's coming through with a data extension. So we're going to set this user ID. Let's bring this user ID up to our var statement. So we're declaring that. And now we're going to be able to set this user ID to this value that's coming in the data extension that we just found. So to do that, we're going to add an attribute value function. It's just best practice. It allows for you to not error out if that field is not populated. And there you go. We've got this user ID in our data set. Now we've got the user. We're able to find that on a record by record basis. Now we just need to look up into our user database to find the name and the email of that user. So if you have the Marketing Cloud connector, like JB said, hooked up, you will have synchronized data extensions in Content Builder. So let's go into that Content Builder. Here we are in Contact Builder, and we're going to go under the Data Extension tab, and we should be able to see our synchronized data extensions. These are objects that we're synchronizing over from the CRM environment. And one of those synchronized data extensions is the user. So here's this database of all these salespeople, users in the CRM environment that we're going to use to do our lookup. So we've got that data extension. So we're going to go back to our code for a second. Now we need a function to do that lookup. So using the handy dandy AMP script guide that we all love and use, we're going to use this lookup rows function. So what this function does, it has three variables that are required. The first variable is the data extension. That's going to be our user data extension. The second variable is the column. It's going to identify that user ID within that data extension. And then the third value is that user ID that we've set already. So let's go down. This is such a great site. They give you actual examples of code. So I'm going to take this code. We're just going to sort of steal this. Thank you, AMP script guy. We're going to bring this back over to our code. We're just going to paste this in here. We're going to modify this. So first, let's take this at rows. Let's bring this variable up. So we have that declared. Now we're going to change this. We need to find the data extension name from our synchronized data extension. So it's that user underscore Salesforce. Let's copy that. Let's bring that in here. And then we need to figure out within this data extension, which field provides that user ID. I'm pretty sure it's ID, but let's just double check the records to make sure it's right. Yep, there's that 0053 number. So ID is that one that we want. We're going to, again, just go right in here. We're just going to copy that ID. We're going to go back to the code. We're going to paste that in here. And then we're going to use this user ID field that we just set above there. Great. That's the first part. That's doing the lookup. Where are we going to get this data? Once we find a match, now we need to go through this record and pull out the name and the email. So there's a second part to the code we're going to want to copy over. So we're just going to steal this code. Again, thank you, AmpScript Guide. Going to go back into our code snippet. And let's just paste this in. Again, we're going to modify this. All right, so we like row count. We're going to keep this. We're going to declare this as well. What row count does is the @rows variable, when it sets this, when it does a lookup, it comes back with this number variable that isn't like a 1, 2, or 3. Row count does that. It'll take this number and convert it into like a 1, 2, or 3, something that you can use within your if statement. We don't need to output this, so we're going to remove that here. Here's that if statement. If row count is greater than 0, meaning did we find a match? Did we find a user? Then continue. So we don't need this for loop. That's for a little bit more of a complicated execution. We've got another var statement here, which we will populate in a second. And now we're going to be setting the row based on that rows that were coming through. In this example, it's just going to be one row because when we do a lookup, there should be only one user ID associated in this database. So now that we've set that, now that we can figure out, okay, so how many variables we need to populate based on what we're seeing associated with that user record. So let's set these two variables that we pulled in from the send log with their @ symbol. We're going to cut them. We're going to put one here. We're going to put the next one right below it. So this is going to populate those values from this data extension. And now we just need to find in the user synchronized data extension the field names that correspond to name and email address. So let's go back to that synchronized data extension. Let's look at the records. Email, that looks right. That's an email for sure. And then name, here's the name. It looks like that's the name of the salesperson. So let's start off with the name. We're going to copy this syntax. We're going to go back into our script. We're going to put that in there. And then we're going to go over here and find that email. And then we're going to go back here into our script. I'm going to put an email here as well. Excellent. Let's end this with an end if so that doesn't error out. We're going to declare this variable here just so that gets reset each time it goes through this lookup. And that should be it. So now that we've got this created, let's save, like that sort of wraps up the second session of creating a more complicated use case to populate values in the send log. Let's save this content block now that this is complete so that we can leverage it. So we're going to call this send log custom. And let's copy this as the customer key as well. So let's hit save. So now that we've got this created, let's copy this and we're going to bring this over to the content. One thing before we copy, you could do a little bit of cleanup here, making sure these are all capitalized, but just for time purposes, we're just going to move right on to this. So we're going to go into this email and we've got the header script already set up in this email. So it's another code snip embedded in this email, which has an opened AmpScript block. We can just paste in our code here. Okay, great. And so now what we've also got in this email is we've got another block that's going to be able to render the variables that we just put in here in the code. So we're using this v function that we can output the send from name, send from email, and email ID. So what we're going to be able to do here is let's proof this with someone who's been in the journey already before we change the journey itself, just to make sure it's working before in the journey. So it's always a good practice to proof it in the email, preview and test to make sure that data connection is working. So we're going to hit preview and test. We're going to select the data extension from this Cervelo sales push data extension. So we're going to go under data extensions, and here's that Cervelo sales push. We'll select anybody here as a record. And then let's see if this gets outputted. Great. So here's that send from name. It's Michelle Medina. Here's her email address, and there's that email ID. So it's great. It's validating that this is working. That's excellent. So now we're going to send somebody through this journey, a test record, so that we can populate the send log with the before and the after to show how that's being updated. So we're going to go into our campaign. We've created a test campaign in order to facilitate this. So here's my test campaign. And you can see there are no campaign members in this campaign. So I'm going to go select a contact. I've got a test contact here. Let's see. Just need to scroll this up. There I am. Sorry, the Zoom thing. We're going to add myself to a campaign. We're going to select this test campaign. It's got the same add to campaign status. And then we're going to hit submit. And there we go. Should be added to that campaign. Let's go back to that campaign and take a look, see if I've been added as a campaign member. And there we go. It's been added. Let's take a look here just to validate. There I am in that campaign. Now that should kick off this journey. So we should see this change to 9. Let's go click into these results and see if we've got this data populating. It might just take a second to get that populated. Let's go back one more time and check this again. Yep, so it's coming into the journey. So while we're waiting for that, I'm going to do one more thing to help make this code a little bit more resilient. We're going to go back to this email, and we're going to use content block by key. So instead of manually dropping in this code in every email, you can use this content block by key function that will just pull this script in anytime. So we're going to use content block by key. It gives us a little WYSIWYG pops up, which is super handy. We're going to select this script we just created, and then we're just going to end that with a paren. Let's preview and test that just to make sure that that works. It's always good to make sure whenever you add a content block by key to make sure that it's working. Yep, still working. So that's a much simpler way to have your code working. Like a typical use case would be to drop this content block by key in a footer so that it's in every email that you build, sort of in the background, always populating that data. And then if you ever need to make a change, you've got a script that you've saved in your directory where you can, if you need to add more fields to your send log, you just add it to the script in one place. It impacts all emails. So it's kind of handy from that standpoint. Definitely use that content block by key function. All right, let's go back to our journey and see if we've got some 9s populated over here across the data extension. Okay, great. We've got some data being populated here again. So we've got that first email that's sent, and then we're just waiting a minute for that second email to be populated. So let's go into the send log itself, and let's take a look at the actual data which we just created. So we should see that before that first email not populating the custom data, and then the after with that email populating that custom data. So Marketing Cloud, here we go. All right, let's go into our data extensions. Again, we're not going to select a synchronized data extension. We're going to select the send log to take a look at. So here's that send log. Let's click into the send log itself. We're going to go into those records. We're going to go to the bottom. The last 2 records should be added with the ones that probably came through that journey. Let's select that. We're going to go to the so what we're going to be looking for here as we scroll down are these 3 fields. Here's that email ID, send from name, send from email. Those are the fields we should be populated. So when we scroll down to the bottom here, here's that example. Here's that first email. So no data is being populated here. Here's the one that has that new script in here. So it's got, first of all, my email name and email address. It was based on me dropping in that campaign into that campaign and pulled in my user ID. So there you go. That's an example of how to populate those, a simple field in the send log and a more complicated field doing that lookup in the send log itself. So now that we've got the data populated in the send log, we're going to move on to our next phase, which is populating the, using the data view. So let's go back into this flow chart real quick and just take a quick look at what we're doing next, because I know we've been covering a lot. So this is that first part. We just populated all this great data in the send log. Now we need to find out this data view. How are we going to pull in this merge ID in here so we can link this to the send log to create our automation? So let's go back into Marketing Cloud. And let's just talk about data views in general. So data views, another fantastic data resource within Marketing Cloud. There are all these different data views that get populated based on all different types of attributes. So let's take a look at the click, for example, this click data view. So whenever somebody clicks on an email in Marketing Cloud, you get to access this information via queries. So you can find like the subscriber key, when that click was clicked, URL, a lot of great data points all throughout these data views. Definitely utilize these in your queries. Unfortunately, there isn't this merge ID in this data view. We search high and low and they're not there, but there is a custom data view. So if you reach out to your sales account executive, they will enable a custom data view called Sent Merge ID that populates that merge ID from the individual email result. So to make it easier, we created a data extension to showcase what is in that Sent Merge ID. As the documentation, you can't find anything, at least I can find, in of what's included. So let's take a look at the data that's in this Sent Merge ID data view that's now we've just brought over into a data extension. So very similar to the send log, it's got these 4 values: job ID, list ID, batch ID, and subscriber key. The combination of all 4 of these will create a unique ID for each one of these records. It's got a subscriber key, and here's that merge ID, that little individual email result object field that identifies that individual email result. So fantastic. We've now got these 2 data points. We've got our send log that's got the custom data, and now we have the ID to link those 2 together. So we're going to build an automation now to link those 2 databases. So here we've got an automation which has got a query. We're going to edit this query just to take a look at what we're doing here. So the basics of any query, I've got 3 main sections. You've got a select statement here, you've got a from statement, and a where clause, which we'll cover in a second. So let's talk about from. From is, where are you getting this data from? So just like we've been talking about, they're coming from 2 sources. We've got this Sent Merge ID, which is a data extension, or could be used as the data view. And then we've got send log here. So the way we can join these two data sources by using the join function. And just like we've called out, here are those 4 fields that are consistent with both in the send log and that sent merge data view. So when we're going to want to pull in records that have a matching subscriber ID from the sent merge data view to a sub ID in the send log. Same thing for all 3 of these variables. When we find a match for all those variables, we've got our data set. This gives us the ability in the select statement to output to a data extension the data fields from both of those data sources. So we're going to be outputting, for example, M here is going to be outputting this M merge ID. That's that key important merge ID that it's going to identify that individual email result. And then right along with it, right down here from the send log, here's that send from name and that send from email that we've just saw that we populated. So those are the 3 key fields. We're also populating this other data from logging purposes for itself. So let's take a look at this data extension. We're writing this to the IER update data extension. Let's go in here and take a look at that, just so we can see the data. Here we go. So this is the data that gets outputted from that query. So here's that merge ID. And here it is. Here's that send from name and send from email that we're going to be populating in those records. So this is a fantastic data set that's going to allow us to use this to update it using a journey. So let's go back to the automation real quick. One thing I just want to do, we'll cancel out of this. Let's save it. I think we made any changes. And just to give you the basics overview of an automation. So an automation is basically just a shell that helps activate these activities. So in this example, we have a query that we just walked through. We're going to be scheduling this, so this happens every day. So it'll be this automated solution that's always updating records in the CRM environment. And that's basically it. So what we're going to do is we're going to activate this. I've got this set to start on the 31st, so there's no problem there. It's not going to run until then. And then let's just hit save. Okay, now we're going to create the journey now that we've got this data extension, we're going to create the journey to update the CRM records in the CRM environment, those individual email results. So here we are in Journey Builder. We're going to create a new journey, a multi-step journey. And let's create a name for this journey. So we're going to call this send log update, excuse me. And let's save this journey into our folder just so we know where it lives. So we're going to put this in our hands-on implementation series folder. Okay, the most important activity of any journey is the entry event. You've got all these different sources here. here is this date extension entry event, because we know we have a date extension that this automation is populating. Let's select this date extension. We want to select that date extension that the automation is populating. So we're going to go navigate to that folder. And there's that IER update. Let's select you. We're going to hit done. We don't need to filter any context. It pops up the schedule. Let's pull up the schedule. We're going to want to select the automation that we know is activated. So let's select this automation. And then we want to select the contact evaluation. Usually we do evaluate new records only new records added after journey activation. And there you go. That aligns the entry event to for that journey to pull in those records from the date extension. You can see those 16 records. They're not going to be pulled in yet. They still need to be fired from the automation itself. Okay, so the most important part of this journey outside of the entry event is the update of the object in the CRM environment. So if you scroll down to the bottom, you've got a bunch of options here of doing updating in the CRM environment. So you can do a lead, you can do a task. We find it's best practice to use this object activity. You can use it for any object. So let's drag that into the canvas. Let's click into this object activity and we'll set this up based on that data extension we just added. So we're going to search for the individual email results object. Let's select you. We are not creating, we are finding and updating records in the CRM environment. We want to select the field that's going to use as a reference point. There's that merge ID, right? This cannot happen unless you have that merge ID. That's why we had to pull in that merge ID in order for this to happen. That's the importance of that merge. I just wanted to call that out. And that's what we're going to do is we're going to select in that data extension that we are aligned to this journey, we're going to select that merge ID. Now that we have that populated, we're going to select do not update here. We're going to go to next. And then the only thing you need to do is select those two fields that you want to populate. So the send from name and the send from email. So we're going to select the send from email. We're going to go to the journey date extension. We're going to select email. It populates this handlebar code. We're going to hit save. We're going to go to the send from name. We're going to go down to the date extension. We're going to find that send from name field. We're going to hit save. And then this next screen just gives you a summary of the fields that you're looking to update, and then just gives you a default name there. So there we go, done. Let's hit save so we don't lose our work. We're going to delete this wait step here just to make this quicker. And then we're also going to change this wait step to 1 minute just in case we need to send people through again if it doesn't work. Let's hit save. And then the last part we're going to want to do is we're going to do our journey settings. We're going to do this as a re-entry only after exiting. Definitely worth going on a little bit more detail. We can do this in another session, those different options there, but just for now, let's do that. Let's hit save. And now we're ready. We're going to activate this journey. And we're going to wait for our little rocket ship. Thank you very much. Excellent. We're all set. So let's go back to the automation. If we refresh this automation, we should see this journey activity populate right here in the automation automatically. There it is. That's that send log update journey. Fantastic. Let's hit save. Now we're going to run once this journey. So let's pause, this automation. We're going to pause this automation. We're going to run once just so that we can bring this data in. We're going to select all activities. We're going to select run. And we're going to hit run now. Now we're going to go into this activity tab, and it might take a minute or two for this to start working, but we're going to just come back here and refresh the screen. We should see a blue SQL query pop up once this is working and the data is working. There we go. It's starting to do its thing. It's going through the query part right now, and then the journey will populate there in a second. So while we're waiting for this to work, one of the things I want to call out, so we did this kind of a little bit fast. So if you're setting this up for the first time, you're not going to want to do this query and populate all of these records and send them all at once, right? You're going to want to break this down and send, like, say, I'm going to send one record to test that this is really working end to end. So what you'd want to do in that use case, we're going to want to pull in this query. I'm just going to edit it just from just visually, and a way that you can edit this query so that you can select like just one record. So this is where this where clause comes in. So this is a filter. So we want to select a subscriber key that equals just one of those records in the in the sent merge ID data extension or data view. So let's just go in here and select one. Yeah, so let's just select this subscriber key. And we're going to go back to the query, and then we're just going to add that there. Let's just validate that syntax, make sure that's working. Great. So here's an example. If you wanted to, like if I was going to do this, we had all the time, I would just select one subscriber, one contact, populate this, make sure it populates in the data extension first, run it through, see it go end to end, that one record, make sure it's working, populating correctly before, and then I would do it in batches. Like if you have thousands of records as you're testing this through, you can, that's the great thing about Automation Studio and queries, you can set your data sets exactly the way you'd like to set them up. So let me just cancel out of that. Let's come back here to this activity tab and see what's going on. Okay, we've got our data populated. Let's go back to the journey and see if we've got people coming in. Yep, we've got people coming into the journey. Let's go back to the canvas. Yep, here we go. They've all 16 have come through. All right, now for the magic reveal, let's go back to these contacts. Let's go into an individual email result and see if we've got that data populated. So we're going to go back to that related tab. We're going to select that individual email results. There we go. There's that send from name and send from email populated from the Marketing Cloud. Again, it was pulled from the Salesforce CRM environment, pulled in the Marketing Cloud. It was moved to a send log. It was queried from the send log and then repopulated in the Salesforce CRM environment. So just to close the loop on this, let's go take a look at this report and see what the marketing and sales team has now at their fingertips now that we've populated all this data. So look, here's all this data populated, fantastic. So, you know, a typical use case could be like, all right, let's take a look at this data. So we're seeing Michelle. She's a salesperson. She's doing a great job. She's got a bunch of her contacts in. She's good to go. So we might want to follow up with Jay or with Mispa because they've only got 2. You know, here's Sandesh, and Sandesh actually isn't a salesperson. He's associate to the salesperson. So we might reach out to that salesperson and say, hey, we're noticing that you didn't drop them in the campaign because we'd really like this to come from you and not use one of your associates to do that. So this is some of the information that we found for our client that was helpful to be able to populate this data set from the Marketing Cloud environment. So let's go back into our deck. Now that we've done that, let's just go back into our slideshow. And I've got a couple of tips just to call out that we covered throughout, to mention these really quickly. I know that we don't have a lot of time. So again, be mindful when adding fields to the send log. Understand that field relationship with the Salesforce CRM environment, both the field label, the API, and how that comes over into the Marketing Cloud environment. Use that content block by key to create that universal script. Use that where statement to set up those test records to really make and fine tune those. You can use Journey Builder in different ways like we used today. We showed a Journey Builder using it to send emails. We showed Journey Builder using it to set test emails to populate data. We use Journey Builder to create update fields in the CRM environment. It's a very flexible tool. Leverage those data views and personalization strings. They're super helpful. And then utilize those resources like AmpScript Guide. And if we do have a second, I want to point out Matthias Dabrowski's site as well. So let me just go to the next slide real quick. Let me just do a quick recap. So hopefully we've seen the solution deliver on what the client had wanted. Now we're able to populate fields in the send log. We're utilizing these data sources in unique ways, and we've created this automated solution that will always be on. In the CRM environment, hopefully we've seen how campaigns can trigger events. So we know a little bit more about the individual email results object and customizing reports. And most importantly, on the Marketing Cloud side, what's the send log? How to customize it? How to use Automation Studio to leverage those data sources, and especially how to use Journey Builder to all those different ways. So let me just go back. One thing I want to mention that I forgot to mention because it's such a great resource. Matthias Dabrowski has this amazing site. He just recently published this site, this SQL Basics, which was used as a guide for my training. Where he's outlining the select from and where statements here, in addition to having all these great use cases when you're doing your building, your queries. So I definitely would recommend checking out this site and also the AmpScript guide as well. So that's it. So just wanted to see if there were any questions on any of those areas that we covered. Sorry, that was a lot.
No, that wasn't a lot, Tim. It's really wonderful session, and You explained it in very detailed way, and the way that you structured the session. You first gave an introduction, then and very tiny details as well. You covered very nicely. We have some great feedback in the comment section as well. I'm going to send them to you later. So as per the questions, I think we have Ryan and few others helping with the questions. Thanks, Ryan. I'm checking if there are any other questions. So, Akash, how often do you run the automation to send the data from SFMC?
Great question. And let me just I forgot to activate this, so let me just do that. So this this automation we've got it set to run daily. So we found in our use case, once a day to populate these individual email results works. You have options to do it on an hourly basis in Automation Studio. You can also, with wait steps, you can break that down to every 15 minutes. So that's really as fast as you want within Automation Studio, 15 minutes, because again, we're syncing data from the Salesforce CRM environment to the Marketing Cloud environment, and that gets synchronized every 15 minutes. So that is really your delimiter. You can't go any faster than that when you're using CRM synchronized data. So it's usually about every 15 minutes. So you've got your options there. You can do it hourly, you can do it every day, every week, but for this use case, it was once a day.
That's awesome, Tim. And I don't think we have any other questions. Few more minutes. Yeah, I love Matthew's site. It has a lot of information. Thanks for the link, Levine.
Yeah, and he is fantastic. I definitely will encourage everybody to go to the Trailblazer groups and post your questions in that channel, that Marketing Cloud channel. I mean, all of these great resources, including Matthew's, will get back to you like within seconds. It's amazing. So definitely would leverage him and all of those resources on the Trailblazer site.
And I see Matthews is not in the call, but thanks to him, he is also active on the Slack channel. I shared the Slack channel link, and he has been answering the questions and helping people. So I have next question, Tim. What are the troubleshooting steps need to be taken if data views or data are not sent or populated in the CRM?
That's a great question. So if let's say for this use case, so we are if we're populating data to from the Marketing Cloud environment to the Salesforce CRM environment, you can, in your query, you can use records where sorry, that's running. We'll just pause and edit this. You can add to this query to only pull in those records that are not null. And that way you're only using records that are going to populate your entire data set. So if you're pushing data from Marketing Cloud to the CRM environment, you have your options within your query to control that data. And same thing, if you're pulling data down from the CRM environment, you can do that same type of searching. So say if you're pulling from synchronized data extensions and you only want to pull in records that have all of those data points that you're looking for, again, you can ask in your where clause, you could say, I only want to pull in these records that have all of these values populated. So I think Automation Studio would be a great way, and using SQL query is a great way. There's a lot of examples on Matthew's site that use null statements and different ways to query the data to work around those situations when your data integrity is not 100%.
Awesome. I think those are all the questions, Tim. Thank
Awesome.
you very much. I can thank you enough, actually. So everyone, yeah, we do have the Slack channel, and any other questions later on, you can post the questions in the Slack channel, and we're gonna share the recording soon on the YouTube channel, Trailblazing Together. And I really thank you once again, Tim, and thanks everyone for joining today's session. And the next session is going to be on Feb 8th, and another one is on March 1st. And I will be adding more sessions as well in the coming few weeks. Please be on the lookout for the sessions. Have a good one, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.